Yo, what's good, people? It's your boy, Big Dre Sensei. And man, welcome back. I just wanted to hop on this game, y'all. I know that we got this Pokemon Arceus game coming out soon. So, like, man, let me play something that's kind of similar just to hold me back for a little bit. I think this came out sometime last year. It's called Nexomon. I never played this before, but it definitely had the old Pokemon vibes based off any video that I seen and any pictures. So yeah, man, I want to go ahead and get to this. If anybody that haven't played this, please don't put this out there. Don't tell me more about it. I plan on diving in a little more into it in the future. I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive in and see what this game got to offer. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it. Gonna name that Big Dre. My bad. Alright, let's go ahead and get ready.
Long, long ago, this world once belonged to us, the humans. We were the rulers and masters of this land in this era of prosperity. But then, on one fateful day, everything changed. From the high heavens descended an unspeakable evil, a creature, a monster. He proclaimed himself as Omnicron, the king of the Nexomon.
Bruh, the Matrix, man. What up, Elsinore? How you doing, man? Bruh, the Matrix look decent, man. For them, these graphics just... I wonder how much of that movie is like legit Keanu Reeves and, you know, the rest of the staff, because it was good to me. There's so many mixed reviews about that movie. How you think about it? I think it was good to me, but there's so many mixed reviews.
Over centuries of
it definitely went in the direction I wasn't expecting.
How to tame and befriend the Nexomon and use them to fight against Omnicron himself. Then, in the midst of a dark age, one brave human warrior rose against all odds.
Dang, you said that you had COVID?
And with the
dang, bruh. And I hope you a speedy recovery, man. You know, it's in the midst with people getting their symptoms. I've been told by my friends and stuff that they range a little bit everything from a little bit of something to needing to go to the hospital. So, and they normally hit them hard like by the third or fourth day.
With our Nexomon friends.
Yeah, you got to check out that movie, man. It's pretty good. It was like their approach to it definitely threw me off because I wasn't expecting that approach. But it was a dope idea, though.
So,
alright, that was a brutal jump. My man, I ain't paying attention to the flashback, and all of a sudden you saw somebody getting destroyed. Yeah, man, I say the best thing you can do. I know a lot of people say if Mucinex helped them. Feel like Mucinex, of course, staying on top of your liquids, and just a lot of sleep. It definitely put people out of commission. I haven't caught it yet, you know, knock on wood, but you know, you just never know when it's gonna come, man. You know, rather you try to avoid it or not, you still gotta go out and get what you gotta get, so it's gonna still be some way for you to catch it. None may overcome Omnicron, the almighty king of monsters. On this fateful day, my kind will arise from the ashes of your world. Now be gone. Well, they threw me back in time so I get some training because I was weak.
Our story begins with a young and normal human child. Little does he know, his
Bruh.
life is about to
If
change.
Pokemon had this voice up in it during the back in the Game Boy days, my Pokemon would have been legit. Legit contender for best game of all time. This dude's voice is amazing. Okay. It definitely got the Pokemon vibes. Starting you off in the room. I almost got the exact same outfit. Surprised they ain't get sued by Pokemon, but I'm just gonna keep that to myself though. And it feels so weird playing this on a non-Nintendo device. I'm playing this on the Xbox right now. Like, bruh. The device is performing marvelously, sir. It is most certainly ready for distribution, shall we? I'll be the judge of that. Show it to me now. Absolutely. Please follow me. I'll just be pulling my card with my dad like that, bro. Exactly. If the noise wake you up, right? You shook the whole crib, mama. What you talking about? There's nothing to be concerned about. We're merely performing further tests on our latest invention. That reminds me, I believe Ellie was looking for you, dear. Why don't you go out and find her? She probably wants to show you her new toy. How very exciting. Yeah, they got a lot of facial expressions in here. Alright, nothing new to say. Go outside. Oh yeah, you know what interested me about this? I seen a couple videos, then I found out it was only $10. And I think they boosted the graphics from the original release for the Xbox and for the PS5 or PS4 and the PS5. Maybe it's the PS. They upgraded for next gen. So I don't know if they upgraded on the Xbox One or was it the Series X or was it the PS4 or the PS5. Stay away from us. You can't take Atlas. He's not yours. I'm not going anywhere without that robot. Alright, now, go away. Come back here. Y'all about to have a tug of war? You about to have a tug of war with somebody in a wheelchair, bro? You reckless. I said no. There you go. Go ahead and play Captain Saver. Bro, you just headbutt buddy like that, bro. What? Alright. What's your problem, kid? Look, over there. He dropped the Nexomon container. Like the first gen Xbox, but we gonna keep it cool. I bet he stole it. We have to take it back. Hey, this isn't yours. Don't look like it's yours either, slick guy. Tug of war again. Let's get it. Let me win that. How are you so strong? Probably because we got the same build and you seem to be grown. Uh-oh, we dropped it. Let's get up in there and see what we got. Yes, Master Ellie. I'm on my way. What is that dumb robot of yours gonna do? Oh, you trying to buck? Ball. Well, he sent you off Team Rocket style. What? Starting to see a lot of similarities, y'all, you know. Pokemon must not have paid attention to this game yet. Quick, we must rescue the Nexomon. Uh-oh, who we about to get? Let's see what we got. What's our selection? Bro, I swear, on every Pokemon game, I've always started off with the fire type. Charmander just did it to me from the jump. A paw print. Let me see what kinds they are. Normal. Okay, we not doing normal. Mineral. We got mineral instead of rock. Got a wind type. Water type, of course. Fire type. Trying to see who got this highest attack. Look like my electric one might have it. I might go with... Oh no, the wind type got the highest. Hold on now. I want wind or electricity, man. If Pokemon ever let me start with electricity, I'd take that. So I think I might take a chance on this one. Even though this one look like them evolutions gonna be dope down the line. You're gonna take this one right here. We're gonna go ahead and do it. And there we go. Hey, we got our first one. Let's get it. Hey, what did you do to my partner? What? Forget it. I can deal with you on my own. You don't stand a chance against my Nexomon. Dang, my phone thought I said, hey Google, chill out, bruh. Stop listening. Stop listening. Alright, hey, use the Nexomon you just got to fight him. I mean, that was my intent. Are we fighting him directly? But he just challenged one of these creatures by himself. He bold, man. Okay. You know, we're gonna bust out the strong attack. We got some tackle, we got a post shot, we got scratch. Alright, these some nice moves to be starting off with. Okay. Let's see what that, oh, that take off half? I'm about to smack you another one of them then. Don't be giving me them knuckles, bruh. Dead. I think I chose the right one, y'all. Are you kidding me? Well, you just got whooped by a couple kids and a robot. Are you dead? Hold on, bro. Bro, don't nobody call the cops, man. We gonna wait for this dude to wake up. Y'all just gonna act like he not there? Bruh, continue your day. This dude passed out. That was amazing. There's no way that was your first Nexomon battle. Yeah, it really was. Oh, that's right. I should introduce you to my latest invention. This is Atlas. What's up, Atlas? Hello there. You're gonna love him. Let me show you what he can do. Look like he can whoop ass. You know what I'm saying? Who is this dude? What do we have here? Bro, why are you the only character that don't look like your character, bro? Oh, that looks more like, okay. The greatest Nexomon tamer in the world. And you are? Well, I don't think that matters, does it? Oh, you're an asshole. Oh, man. You can't keep track of all the weaklings in this pathetic place. Is that your Nexomon, kid? Kinda balled it from that box that was on the ground, and we don't know where it is. It doesn't belong to you, does it? I don't think it belongs to nobody, bruh. Perhaps you think you are worthy of using the Nexomon? Do you have what it takes to be a true tamer? Come on, kid, show me what you can do. Bruh, chill. Chill. Bruh, you need to eat something, man. I would slide you a Snickers if I can, but... Whoa. So, this dude got magic powers without the Nexomon. Just punch the ground and cause electricity. Alright, bruh. You had the guts to steal from me, but now you're frightened? Keep the Nexomon, brat. Let it forever serve as a shameful reminder of how weak you are. Now, out of my way. How many hours it take? I do want to whoop this guy's ass. Get up, fool. Dang, he booted my ass? Yes, my lord. Dang. Farewell, kids. You better pray that we don't cross paths ever again. Oh, mark my words, bruh. You gonna get smacked. What a nice gentleman. Oh wait, you need to provide an update. He's horrible at reading people. Oh, what is wrong with him? He obviously planted something evil. Clearly, he's the antagonist. Didn't you notice anything weird about him? We just gonna ignore this big old ground that he got left in the hole right now? I mean, this big old hole like right here. You gonna ignore that? He not gonna reimburse my parents for this? Like making the ground exactly, Alice. Thank you. He's here all the time. It must be because of the secret machine your parents are building. Maybe we can follow him. Are you crazy? Follow that guy? Come on, this isn't a video game. Okay. Okay. That's some humor in there. Okay. Hey, this could be important. We should go. I think you're supposed to be the smart character in this story. Referring back to video games. I see how this gonna go. Good choice of words, Alice. Well, here's the smart idea then. We should get another Nexomon. What? That way, we don't have anything to fear while following the Nexolord. I'm sure Alice can teach you how to capture a Nexomon. I guess I owe you one for saving me. Alright, follow me when you're ready. Go ahead. You always want to learn about Nexomon anyway. I'll catch up to you later, okay? Sure thing, buddy. I'm not too fond of chasing people around when you're putting holes into the ground. That's not attractive at all. It's not smart either. The machine I'm working on? I'm sorry, kiddo, but you're too young to understand that kind of thing. How? The Nexolord is the strongest Nexomon tamer in the world. He's got big plans for the future, and scientists like us are helping him make it a reality. Alright, so y'all just some kiss asses. Okay. Hold on. I didn't see that on the table. We going back in. What was that? Potion. Okay. You can't look at. Oh, okay. It's not that type of interactive game. Okay. Alright. Guess that mean I gotta get my ass up out of here. Hold on. Let me see if this. Oh, it does say. This is just like Pokemon, boy. Alright. I ain't trying to watch Buddy whoop the ground no more. So. Okay. I think that was the. Okay. Bruh, copy and paste. Bruh. Hey, you're finally here. Ready to meet your new friend? Sure. Excellent. Come with me. Before we start, you need an Exo Trap. Take this one. Hey, Pokeball. You received an Exo Trap. Now let's see. Nexomon live virtually anywhere. And when they see tamers like yourself, they try to hide. See the grass over there? Yeah, that thing been dancing since I got over here. Notice anything strange about it? Yeah, it's shaking its booty right now. Yeah. That's right, it's shaking. The Nexomon must be hiding there. If you approach it, the Nexomon will probably try to defend itself. That's when we'll capture it. Go ahead, approach the shaking grass. Juke! Alright, let's see some over there. Hold on, I want to make sure before we... Alright, no, not the process. Alright, let's get it. Clearly I can't use my strongest attack, so we're about to go with scratch. Oh, I can't choose it. Okay. Golden have 100% success rate, so I'm using a regular, bro. Don't make me use this gold right now. Damn. I gotta use a golden one, bruh. That's a waste of a gold. He level 3. But that's a long capture process. Elsinore, bruh. I'm pretty sure you probably don't get this unlocked until like the end of the game for a gold one. They sat there and used it on this dude, man. A Baron. Thank you for joining the squad. We appreciate it. I didn't get an achievement for that? Xbox, what have you done? Hey, I see you got 2 Nexomon now. Things should be easier from here. The Nexomon you captured is a little exhausted from that battle, don't you think? I didn't touch him. I just smacked him with a Pokeball. But it's gonna be hard to distinguish the different words. I've got a couple of items that can heal him up. Receive 5 potions. I never attack him once again. Hell, Nexomon is easy. Simply open your menu and select a potion. That's it. Remember to keep your Nexomon healthy. Most cities have a free healing center that you can use. Of course, Poke Center. Are you ready? Because I've got a plan. We've lost track of the Nexolord, but this is another way to learn more about him. Oh, really? There's a powerful tamer named Ivan who lives in Town. He's an overseer. Overseers are great tamers chosen by Nexolord himself. He must know something. Town is really close. How about we play Ivan a visit and ask him about the Nexolord? I'm about to move this light to the side, y'all. I'm sorry. Blocking off some of the screen. Let's go, let's go. I can't wait to meet another powerful tamer. Be careful out there, alright? I'll contact you as soon as I learn more about the Nexolord. So how does this go from a we to an I?
So our young heroes embark on a journey to the small town of Parum.
Oh, Parum.
They hope to meet Ivan, the overseer of that town, who might know something about the mysterious Nexolord.
Let's go. So I'm free. I'm good to go. Let me get. There we go. Okay, I was about to say. Got my first Nexomon. Yo, okay, so they pop up at a flock. That's cool with me. Make sure my dude good. I'm gonna have to swap and put him first. And then finish him with my boy. Oh, y'all juke me. Okay. Hey, socks here. Let's see. Man, I wish I could look at the rarity of this. Mollywop. Ooh, you know what I did do? I didn't check it. Oh no, I got 5, right? Let's get it. Get up my Pokeball, fam. Let's get it. Where we adding to the team, bruh? I'm trying to level up ASAP. Want some? Get some. Oh, okay, we already repeat. Sorry, you must die now. I apologize for that. Oh, okay, you kind of strong, bruh. Let me go ahead and grab my cousin right quick, bruh. It's a wrap. Oh, Saksha, you about to go down with the next hit. Very effective. Not effective. You got 3 moves at level 2. Alright. Wow, so everybody level up. That's cool with me. Alright, let's see. You give out free healing? Wow, perfect. Sorry, bruh. Let's see what that do. Only 9. He does 5. Alright, we should be straight. One more hit, you capture my boy. Let me see. Alright, I got 2 plants. It's gonna be my first normal type. Get up in my Pokeball. Let's go. Let's get it. Well, we add to the team right now. Yeah, we just gonna heal every time. Gonna fill up the team right here. Oh, okay. Battling to the death. Okay, I'm strong. Let's get it. Oh, this boy got bite. You're dead. But I did not check that out to see if everybody leveled up. Oh no. So I do gotta swap. Ah, that's disrespectful, bruh. Come here, fam. I'm catching you. Let's see. You the wind type. This is about to be super effective. We're about to smack. Oh, nah. Okay. I'll take that. Okay. Not knowing the rarities, bruh. Otherwise, I just take buddy out. Let's go. Hit him with that young Pokeball. You don't want no smoke. Disrespectful, bruh. I'm about to get smacked. You might get killed, little one. Get up in this Pokeball, man. Stop being difficult. I need a flying type, bruh. There we go. Bruh, it does look like that, man. I'm like, they made me catch that one dude and use that good one on her. I'm like, man, they might have been a little useless. How many can I fit in my party? I think I can fit one more. Let me see. Yeah, one more. Okay. So one more before I start training. I'll start training right now. Let's see. Wind type effective? Not really. Oh, okay, that's effective though. We good. She gets some hypnosis to cause some confusion or something. Man, we good to go. I don't know if they got them combo types up in here or not. Oh, okay. I thought if you was under the level of 3 or 4, thought you instantly level up after one battle. Bruh, all these plant types, I might send you inside the box, fella. That's very effective. But that is such an odd looking creature. Sorry, bro. You had to be a sacrifice. Let's see. I wonder if that dandelion thing was a rare type. Well, I'm about to shock buddy up. The Pokemon, yep. My electric and flying. Alright, take this L, fam. These be some interesting looking types. I had a feeling confusion was coming. Change out. Let's see. Flying type should have something over normal, right? That's perfect, because that rock is probably gonna destroy my dude. I ain't got no flying type. Bruh, it's over with for you. Dang. What type of attack this dude got causing heightened confusion. I'm gonna have to get the soldier just to capture him. Got some powerful moves. Of course, electric type. I'm scratching. I'm down to my last one, bruh. We gonna make sure we gonna capture you. Bruh, he down to 1 health. You bust up out of there, bruh. I'm about to be highly disappointed. We're gonna add them to the team. I need to get rid of. Let me see who I can send to the. I'ma always need a flying type though. Is he gonna be worth it? I feel like you won't capture Baron anywhere around here. That's why I don't want to get them out the party. Sorry, buddy. You'll be the weakest link. I gotta find the computer now. Dang. Oh, y'all gonna force me into some battle, huh? Damn, I'm already taking on trainers? Okay. Okay, so how do I send people to the database? I gotta, let's see. Wow, there we go. Okay. Hopefully I can send them. No, I cannot. That sucks. Bro, there ain't no way you can. Oh, this is about to prolong the experience. Let me see if I can use my computer back at home. I see a new viewer hopped on. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I failed. I'm just gonna have to make it do what it do who I got, huh? It sucks. Let's see. Nope. Wow. Buddy caused all that confusion, man. Dangerous. So it don't cause poison. And it's an uncommon type too. Fighting to the death, good sir. There you go. So everybody do level up. This is real slight. I want to see how I'm gonna level up this fella right here. Because his moves are very basic. And I'm about to go ahead and get the big homie for you. Let's go with that little kitty. You're dead. Panda Cub. So they throw out them strong ones every once in a while. Should have caught all of y'all at level 4. Okay, so that's just a strong attack. Perfect. Alright, level 7. Alright, level 3. Might as well keep him on the front line. Not effective. Robin, we gonna need you to learn another move, bruh. Drop this boulder on your head again. Hey, what's going on? I see an additional viewer there. Don't be afraid to hop in the chat and have a discussion. Do anybody remember the old school Pokemon? I don't know everybody's ages. Did y'all play it back in the day? So I was a huge fan back in the day. Y'all couldn't tell me that Pokemon wasn't hot. Just playing it during recess. And then you go and invest in that little Game Boy cord and trade the Pokemon between the different versions. Man, they made that game too addictive back in the day. You'll be trying to plan it out. You argue with your whole friend before the next Pokemon drop. Like, yo, I'm about to get the silver version. You go and get the gold. And both of y'all pop up with silver. Bruh, it's the most worthless and dumbest argument two friends can have. But that's how Pokemon was back in the day. Bruh, it seemed like they leveling up slow. Should I just go ahead and just start fighting the trainers? Let's see. panda cub can come over here and do some damage. I only got scratch too. Bruh. I gotta go to the big homie. Why y'all making this difficult, man? This should be easy. Get about 3 hits. But it's very effective against him. God, disrespectful. No reason. Boy, that tackle did some damage. Okay. This one I just heard to level up. Bro, we just gonna do the trainers, get some real XP. What's over here though? Oh, he juked him. Said, you better increase your aim, bitch. Nah. Let me go ahead and give you this tackle right quick. L. Wind pellet. Okay. Alright, so Robert leveled up. Alright, nothing. Okay, Saksha, you are definitely a common foe. I'm trying to hit you with this confusion though. Take this headbutt right quick. Bow. There we go. You're dead. Alright, let's go. You would have to go against a level 4 version of yourself, right? Why y'all playing games? See, Baron, can you do anything, bruh? You ate that bite though. Oh, okay, so it ain't no way I get rid of you. You out here with the kung fu kicks. Boom! Let's go. That's right, you're out of there. Okay, everybody leveling up. Let's go. Nope, my bad. Take that back. Alright, let's go get this heal. I'm gonna go ahead and take on this trainer. Bushes be jumping when you take a time out. Wow, okay. Okay. Oh yeah. I joked him. There we go. What's up, buddy? Told us I useless because nobody knows how to restore their firmable power. I thought you was gonna battle me, man. I'm over here. Disappointed. Thought I was about to get some smoke. Lock kitty. I'm about to kill you though, bruh. Yeah, you dead. There we go. We got all level foes. Let's go. Oh, we got tackle. Okay. Alright, buddy boy. He can hold his on now. All it took was an unlock of a new move. I bet. Alright. Bruh, a rare? No. Bruh. I should've just took my ass to the town. Now I got regrets. God dang. God dang, I'm disappointed. I'm gonna try to just kill you fast out of pure dislike for the fact that I found you on accident. You got some moves equipped, okay? Taking out the head honcho, okay? Go ahead and take that L. I'm disappointed, man. Ah, this person gonna try to fight though. Ain't that a mob? What you doing? Are you a new tamer? Newbies should never wander too far from a town. It's dangerous out here. Oh, okay. I can't skip this statement. All right. You didn't freeze, did you? No? Okay. Yeah, we might be having some technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. Why can't I skip this screen, y'all? Well, that sucks. I hope it's saved. I almost wish that it don't because I messed up on the rare Nexomon. But this sucks, man. What in the world? How does that happen? No. Alright. So it's literally the game. Everything's continuing but this conversation. Oh boy. This sucks, y'all. I don't know what I'm gonna have to do. Man, hopefully when I close this app, hopefully it don't kill my progress, man. I forgot to save it. Nah. Bruh, this is gonna suck. Don't do it to me. Yeah, this is gonna suck if this is the case. I don't know what to tell y'all. If you start me over, I might have to do a part 2 sometime in the future. Oh man, yeah, it just froze so random. I don't know how it happened. I don't know. Oh, okay. You know, in the back of my mind, I actually wanted to mess up, but what I'm gonna do is play it safe. We're about to save it right here, just in case we pull it again. Are you a new tamer? Newbie should never wander too far from the town. It's dangerous out here. Let me give you something to help you on your travels. Hey, you gave me $300. Let's go. 300 coins. Alright, now I gotta go back. Now I gotta go and see old lady. I gotta heal up. Cause it look like I got a battle coming. Alright, let's go. Well, I got a feeling I'm gonna get smashed. Hey yo, what's going on, Phoenix 10? What's going on with you? How you feeling? Hey you. See you got yourself some Nexomon. Show me what they can do. Come on, don't be shy. I'm a rookie too. Bro, you literally are posted overseeing a bridge, bro. You're not a rookie. That's not how it goes these days. And you have the exact Nexomon I missed out on. Ooh, you the motherfucker. You is a motherfucker. You got these strong attacks. Come on, man. Let me see. Let me get my man's right here. Even though I should have brought out Buddy with karate kicks, he does damage. Ball. Come on, get confused. There you go. A wrap. It's a wrap. Take this too. Wow. It's a wrap. That ass whoop. Take this too. It's a wrap. Okay, it wasn't as much XP as I thought. They had one. Maybe I did overdo it on the train a little bit. Well, my first Pokemon, man. Let's get it. I'm not tired. I need something to drink. Alright. Alright, now I gotta switch out my boy. Now you level 5. I did not pay attention to that. Let's see what Baron do. He want to kick the people in the face. Let's get it. Well, look at that. A new target for my Nexomon. Who you talking all that trash, boy? Hee, I'm on a winning streak today. Bro, I'm pretty sure you only battled the person looking over the bridge. Come on, bro. Don't be reckless. It's only 2 of y'all on this screen. Let's not act naive to it. Bro, where y'all getting these? Well, I'm about to kick. Bro, his tail shook the hell out of my dude. Take that too. You're dead. Go ahead, hit that level 5. Oh, you level up at the end. I didn't know. Oh, you get first attack when somebody come in? Bruh, that's like an instant response. That's suspect. Let's see. Bro, I should have went with that fire type. I think that fire type would have been safe as hell right now. What's he trying to hit me with though? Cause he's getting his ass whooped trying to land one move. And now you're dead. Can't believe this. Yeah, I would both of y'all dudes ass with one dude pretty much. You tripping. Alright, let's see. Let's see what the bird can do. Let me get him in a random battle right quick. Bruh. Why did I do it to myself? Oh God. Okay. Why did I do it? Why did I do it? It would have been so much better if I just went to the next town. I'm gonna rack up on some Pokemon. Watch, I'm not gonna find none of these mother suckers. I need a water type. Lay low fire, bruh. Get my ass over to the next town before we get the prep. For real? Okay. Shit got real. Whoa, what's going on here? There were rumors of very dangerous tamers causing trouble. Oh, don't worry. What are the chances we'll run into one? 0, no, nada. Right? You don't sound too sure. Help, help. Not even the Nexo guard knows what's going on. Bro, you moving like you on fire. Move along, kid. The Nexo guard will take care of this. Let me go ahead and pick this up from a flaming home. Anti-freeze, okay. It seems a powerful tamer decided to race this area. We don't have many leads, but he can't have gone far. Okay. But he just told everybody crib. Anti-burn, let's get it. How terrible. That horrible stranger set the whole place ablaze. They say people like him have been wreaking havoc all around the world. Oh, poor people. Am I just supposed to move on? Is that what we about? Like, man, let me go ahead and get this bath right quick, fam. Let me... Hold on, you got it. You can't get my back. Okay, just the face. Alright, I got it. Got it. Okay, let me go ahead and get this right quick. Hey, got an exo trap. Shh, quiet, zip it. Don't you dare interrupt the great Grandmaster DeRosso. Alright, bro, chill. Only with other silence may I perfect capture nature's beauty on canvas. Okay. Yeah. No, seriously, go away, kid. Alright. That was very obnoxious, but okay. Hey, here we are. Town. Did you know that a different overseer rules each region? Ivan is one and he lives in this town, so this is our chance to learn about the Nexo Lord. Before we look for him though, you should enter this building. It's a healing center. Adventurers like yourself should use them to recover their Nexomon part. Not only that, they also have a Nexo box where you can deposit and withdraw Nexomon. Whew, I almost put the pokey. I'm sure you capture lots of Nexomons, so you'll be visiting these a lot. After you are done with the healing center, you should look for a store. They're right over there. See the cat right there on the top. Alright, that ain't nothing new. Ooh, they even biting off the music? Bro, the nostalgia is something else. This is where you deposit and withdraw Nexomon, understood? Sure thing, buddy. Great, let's keep moving then. Of course I would like to restore. Let's see. All done, your party's doing great, see you later. Alright, see you. My entire party was beaten by some rude guy outside town. There are lots of mean tamers out there looking for a challenge. Be careful. Tamers like you and me depend on healing centers like this one. While Nexomon have been acting aggressively lately, it's hard to keep your team safe. Did you hear me? Did you hear? Some of the world's greatest scientists are disappearing. Not even the Nexo guard knows what's going on. I'm going to stay here until they find the culprit. Yes, float. Whatever floats your boat. If you're scared, you're scared. There we go. Let's put some of y'all motherfuckers in a box. Alright, Panda Cub. You're not that one. You're not that guy. I don't want to do it to Sasha because she look like she is going to be on some promising terms in the future. But she's so dang common. I'll probably grind her out a little bit later. What do you mean by update my title? Am I the only one who thinks there's something weird about the store owner? There's something unnatural about him, but what? It's probably about to be something obvious. Really? It's showing the Matrix as the title? Oh no. I appreciate you. Maybe that's why Elsinore said something about the Matrix. He probably like, man, what in the world is he playing? I apologize, y'all. This was a bad idea for me. I'm gonna have to fix that up though. I don't even think I can do it during the stream though. Oh, let's see. Bam, let's get it. All right. Alright, let's see. There we go. I apologize for this, y'all. I'm highly disappointed that I didn't. See. Let's see. Yeah, I'm seriously apologize, y'all. Let me make sure. Is it updated now, y'all? Hello, my friend. Need something for your adventures? Take a look, meow. I don't want nothing to do with it. How much money I got? That's what I need to. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. So yeah, I'm about to invest a good chunk of change into these Nexo things. You know what I'm saying? Anti-burn, anti-sleep, anti-confusion. Might need about 2 of them. Ooh, don't tell me sleep is up in there. Get a couple of these. I don't think I need to revive this yet. See you around, kiddo. Cough, cough. Today's tamers are so reckless. They buy Nexo traps instead of healing items. It's a dangerous world. Grab some potions for your Nexomon. Bro, you must have read my mind. Let's see. Con Jungle is a dangerous place, so I grab a bunch of potions. That's do the trick. Molly's Gemstone Bazaar. Got a little sad? No, it's not. Alright, got some money. Now I want to go and find these rares that I missed out on. Ran into 2 of them back to back. What is the chances? Alright, get them all the smoke. All the smoke. All that smoke. Quick level up. And you got a kick. Alright, I see you out here trying to grind, bro. Well, hit them with that confusion. Let me get that confusion. That's right. I'm so disappointed. So Fina, I don't know if you seen it, but so I'm doing random encounters, right? All of a sudden I came across a rare type. I ran out of little Nexo traps to capture them and make them mine. So I went and did a battle. The very next time I go into a battle, step into the grass, it's another rare one. They disrespectful. They got disrespectful. I'm about to capture this joker right here. My bad. But he broke out. Now you're dead. That's what you get. Being stubborn. Nah, they just broke out. I don't know what was up with that. Oh, I need a bug type. Okay. Threw some rocks at me, bro. That's how you feel, bro? Bro, get up in there. Come on. There we go. There we go. See the storage, fam. Alright, you still need that water type. Hopefully it don't break out this time. Nah, it's like a chances thing when it comes to capturing. So some Nexomon, I guess they're just easier to capture. Look like he might be in there though. Alright, cool. Second time around was smooth. Send you to storage too, bruh. We just getting everybody. I didn't capture him too. I forgot about that. Slade. Yeah, it woke me up. What a vine attack. Alright, bro. Take this boot to the face right quick. That's the attack he kept using. Get up and don't be stubborn. Go ahead. Stay up and go on the storage too, man. Save my spaces for the rare. Go ahead, get up out of here. Get up out of here. Dang, it's a ton of these. They ain't shaking up. Alright. Now I start coming across the uncommon more commonly. Alright. I see how y'all gonna do. Oh, popping and weaving. Okay. Oh. Let's do it that way. Let's go. Oh, he level 6, level 8. Oh, our boy went and got it on his own. Alright. Thought that attack would be stronger than that, low key. Nobody wants your company, bruh. Alright. Come on, man. I'm not gonna find these rares no more. I got a feeling it was a one time. You dead. Accidentally did that. My fault. Is it me or is it like they leveling up fast all of a sudden? I guess because they're getting a little stronger. Boot to the face. Oh, we gonna boot you again. We gonna take that for what it is. Okay, I guess I might as well just keep right that in. Let's go. Your mind's kid. Yeah, I wasn't getting level 5 a little bit ago, so. Okay, that attack looking mighty strong. Okay, if you don't get up in there, bruh, this might cost me a death. Come on, buddy, get up in there. Get up in there! Now I'm about to get smacked. There ain't nothing I can do. Okay, so ain't the attack with anybody to kill him. That sucks. Stay up and down. There we go. Got 10 of them. Yeah, you rolling with the team, bro. You a rare. Let's get it. Now I gotta heal, because team kind of getting whooped by these random encounters. Juke me. maybe it is, because when they make it over level 5, it seems like I don't get nothing but level 5s. Very effective. Okay. I'm gonna get off this screen. Don't seem like there's nothing strong over here, at least. Didn't I capture one of these? Yeah, I did. Got the little Nexomon thing in the upper right corner. I hope that's what it stands for. Taste of this wind, bruh. Get that. Oh, he put me to sleep. Let's go. That was him, right? Yes, it was. Putting them to sleep. Go to sleep. Dang, wide open. Ball. Going to sleep, fam. Alright, that's waste of attack then. I guess it don't make sense to do it, but at the same time, once he go to sleep, as soon as I attack, he wakes up. I'm getting the comments, man. I'm about to go ahead and move on. I want these rares, though. They gave me one of each of them. You gotta go and get these fools. Alright, it's starting to get a little, okay. Pop his ass. You joking, man? Dang, bro, his attacks do some damage. Good lord. You're dead. I ain't about to level on up fast. Wrong attack. Give me that boot. I wonder if this is very effective. Let's see. No, it's not. Not at all. Going for a final bout, huh? Okay. Pulling out your little strongest attacks, huh? want to try to see if I can get to the first. Oh, I forgot. And at full health. Alright, let's leash cake. You got the lich. Nah, I ain't got to use that move yet. Tornado. Oh, that's how it is. Each of the moves, the strength. So you get up to 100 strength to bust out these moves per battle. That's what's up. Yeah, that's kind of decent. Level up my main character. He only have one level. He can get his grind on. He will be the one that I caught. I have to get you with that ultimate attack, bro. Oh, it's not effective. Biting the hell out of me. Got the smoke. What, do you faint or something? You ain't got no more to give? How'd that go? There we go. Ah, scratch. Alright, I can do one more. Good. This is who I've been looking for. Bro, we about to go through all type of these. So I'm about to put you to sleep with my boy Al Weezy. Going to sleep. Sleep. Go to sleep. And we're gonna capture. Doing it the old-fashioned way. And we good to go. Welcome to the team. Let's go. I was concerned I wasn't gonna see this one. I only got one more of the rares to catch. Hey, unfortunately, I gotta go to this dang on lady to get the healing. Let me write that on. Body slam. Go. Put him on his neck. On the neck. Excuse me. Bro, this random level 6 though. Why y'all gotta do it to me? Dang, that still took away 14. Oh, that took away 14 too. So, get your ass up out of there. Alright, you about to take this win. Dang, that's a strong attack, bro. Feel like the rare one's only in that area though. It's kind of weird. It's a chances of that? Phoenix, so I've been messing around with this some of these apps on here. Oh, let me see. Alright, let me see. Is it a change in my voice? Hold on, I'm about to. Is it a change in my voice at all? I wonder if it worked, if it'll override other apps. Yeah, do we change my voice at all? Cause it's dope if you do. I just found a new program. Slash, now let's get it. Dang, 21. Alright. Tax coming off kinda strong. I see. Oh, y'all right next to each other, huh? You're dead. Mega rare. Let's go. It's only a level 4. I don't want to use nothing too strong. Alright. I'm going to use one more scratch. Then we're going to put Buddy to sleep. We're going to do the same thing we did to the home. You know what I'm saying? Go. Alright, let's see. Mr. Owl. How many licks do it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? He sleep. He's out of there. Get him in my Nexo trap. Yeah, I'm about to say Pokeball again. Ah, he broke out, Lord Jesus. Bruh. He still sleep though. Bro, you gonna get inside this ball, boy. Let's go. Get in there. Ah, playing. Bruh. If you don't get in this ball, man, I'll be forced to thrash you. There we go. Give me the mega rare in this motherfucker. We about to add to the team. Let's see. We got 2 of the same types. Sorry, Hobbin, you gotta go, man. I think I might be good. At least they make it possible that if you don't want to get in the battles, you can easily just avoid it. Like, a lot of games don't do that, man. There gotta be some way. But that's the voice change app on here. This is just like the auto-tune version of it. Let's see, go back to normal. You said that's a sheep? Yeah, I just had to take off that little voice-tronic, whatever that was. I don't know if you heard the difference or not. This little attack be tearing me up. Bro, what is the chances I get? What? Bruh. Alright, we good. We good. They're dead. Thank you for that level up energy blast, bruh. Alright. That's why you're rare, huh? Okay. Yeah, we instantly about to try this. Coming at your head. In the wrong place at the wrong time, player. Hey, y'all popping up over here? Alright. Give you a knucklehead, bro. Strong one over there. Alright. It's kind of cool. They want to give me non-stop strong creatures back to back. All of a sudden, since they gave me that rare, bruh, they just like, nah, we're gonna dumb down the competition a little bit. Just a wee bit. Another one. Bro, what is it? This ain't mega rare. You hopped up 3 out of my past 6 fights. Come on, man. I'm confused. Ain't that a muff? I'm about to get whooped by a weak Nexomon. And he's kicking my ass. I'm dead. Embarrassing. Let me see. Yeah, Alpaca, my bad. Alpaca, one of those. Now he confused you too? Bro, he bringing that heat. Anybody put in front of me, ass is going on the pedestal. Kick that ass. Dang. What he do? Damage. There we go. Just kick my dude ass, man. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm sorry, I can't do nothing to save y'all city. All I wanted was a rare by the type, man. I gotta bring this dude back to life because he got whooped. Let's see. No, wasn't he uncommon? Uncommon. He's common. 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 Uncommon. And common. Alright. One more Nexomon I'm looking for before I move on, bruh. I think I might just go ahead though after these 2 battles. Cause I don't think I'm gonna get what I want. This little motherfucker tough though. Gotta re-up on my little Nexo traps. Bro, they've been destroying me, man. I had to spend 3 of them just to catch this sucker right here. Alright, I'm done. I'm done with the grind, y'all. I apologize it took so long. I didn't know that you could just change up all that stuff though. It's kinda cool. Bad accident did my fault. I actually clicked on something. Oh yeah, I need to get healing. Don't it? I need to play that. You gotta find some people to play that game with. Well, I think it's called what, Overcooked or something like that. I think that's the name of it. I actually think I got that on the PlayStation. I might have to let y'all laugh at me try to beat that myself. Yeah, so I'm about to buy like 20 of these motherfuckers. Let's see. I got 14. At least use another revive. Alright, now I'm about to go and be about my business. Man, ever since the Nexolord named Ivan our overseer, things have gone downhill. He's just a big bully with the army of bodybuilders. The only thing they do is work out. Someone has to teach them a lesson, but he's pretty strong. Sound like you ain't got much resistance there, buddy. Oh, okay, I got workout equipment outside. It's looking real hoodish right now, you know what I'm saying? Ugh, Ivan and his bodybuilders leave their training equipment everywhere. Pyram used to be so beautiful, you know, now it reeks of sweat wherever you go. Ugh, that's stinky. Are you a Nexomon tamer? Are you strong? Will you be our new overseer? Please, Ivan is a big jerk. Everyone is afraid of him and his bodybuilders. But one day I'll become a tamer and beat him myself. That's nice to hear. People complain about Ivan being a terrible overseer, but we know better. There are places with far worse overseers, you know? That's why we moved to Pyram. Okay. Crime for, bruh. Overseer Ivan straight out playground just to build this dumb gym. Where am I supposed to go now? I can't leave without Nexomon. Bro, you was a grown ass looking little boy. Oh hey kid, you're not from around here, are you? Well, good for you. Anywhere else is better than being stuck with that jerk Ivan. We're planning to move to Royale City. I've heard about the overseer is incompetent, so we can do as we please. Yeah, I need to have some rules and regulations to this position then. like y'all Hokage just the strongest in the city. It literally seems like that's what it is. Well, I just go up first. We'll go up first. Oh, so this is the jump, right, huh? Anti-paralyze, alright. Can I come with this buddy over here in the workout, John? What you got this? I'm stuck. What? Bro, don't tell me this game is a constant freezer. No. That's horrible, man. They gotta patch this stuff up. Dang. How though? How do it constantly freeze like this? Alright, I'm gonna have to close app. But it's the second time on the stream I gotta close down the app just to reopen it. And this is on the Series X, so I don't understand how is this happening. Unless it's an update or something I didn't download. I want to try to see if I can get to the gym leader. But nah, it's not a demo. This is the full game. It froze. It did it before though. Watch, it's gonna load me into that exact same scene. I'm just gonna have to save it again. But the game just, see? It's something wrong with the game. Huff huff. Go away, kid. I'm in the middle of my workout. Bet. Say less. Overseer Ivan, the strongest in the world. If you work hard enough, you might someday be the second strongest. 207, 208, 200. But you ain't lifting nothing, bruh. You literally just flexing. Like, what? What is it, kid? You want to join our exclusive gym? How you have to speak with Ivan, but you only accept the strongest. That's great, guys. Anti-bind, okay. What? I'm not expecting this. I'm not gonna lie. This is a little uncomfortable. According to my database, Ivan is a bodybuilder, and this is his gym. What is a pair of weekly doing in my gym? Hey, overseer, that's me, Ivan. Remember the name, huh? What is a bunch of small fry one with the strongest overseer in the world? We want to ask you about the Nexolord. Yeah, silence. Don't you watch the news? The Nexolord is the most powerful tamer in the whole universe. What else is there to know? We know that he's planning something shady, and if you have any shred of honor, you should tell us about it. A weakling like yourself will never understand the designs of the mighty Nexolord. If you're so eager to learn about him, you'll have to prove to me that you're worthy. I don't like where this is going. With the Nexomon battle. Ha! You were wise to be afraid of the mighty Ivan. Hey, come on, we came all the way here. Can't disappoint Ellie now. I know you can do it. You can beat this dumb musclehead. I'm still here, you know. If you want, you can go train your party and capture more Nexomon and come back later. Come back to me when you're ready, rookie. I want to see if I can test these dudes out, but you go straight. Golden one. There we go. Bro, you don't challenge anybody else but the... they don't even speak to you. You're irrelevant to them. Okay, let me see what that other path take before I come whoop this dude. Hold on. If I can whoop him. Shoot, I might need to train to level 10 or something. I'm not gonna let y'all watch that grind. I might have to play this in between so that y'all could just see me grind out to the battles and stuff like that. There have been some really strange earthquakes lately. You know what I think? I think it might be related to the evacuation and excavation, my bad, in the Solar's Desert. They're digging something vast. We can even feel it this far away. Alright, anti-paralyze. Look at this filth. This is why I hate Nexomon. My kids, I tell them, was like you, and they let those dirty creatures roam around the house all the time. I mean, pretty much animals. Well, that Nexomon, where did you get it from? The coolest Nexomon in the Eastern Cave, but that's a little dangerous right now because of the rock slides. Okay. Duly noted. Hey, you know what? I don't think it's the right way to go. We're looking for the overseer. We should head back. Okay, that's cool, bro. You know, I don't like getting whooped on air, y'all, but I'm gonna take this stab at him. Got a feeling I ain't strong enough. Hold on, let me save it first. Whatever, buddy. Let's just get it on. Let's go. He got both? Yeah, I'm about to get crushed. Oh, nah, it ain't bad. Cool. Let's do it. Smacked. You got that animal. Okay, I wasn't planning on beating you with just one person. But he holding his own. Shit. Oh, nah, he ain't gonna be able to take another hit when the next person come out. So let's see, he's normal. Let's take out Owlie. Come on, get out here and light this motherfucker up, boy. Take this L, my boy. What? Boy, what in the fuck? Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna do plant type. Let's get it. You're dead. Ah, that's not. Bruh. Oh, good dodge, bro. Now I'm about to put the strong one on this motherfucker, boy. Oh, this about to be your ass, Mr. Postman. Yeah. Eat that. Eat that. Oh, he juked it. Eat that. Let's go. Let's go. Turbulent toss. Okay. That's how you whoop that ass. Whoop that ass. Hey. Well, what the heck? Even my bodybuilders left? Now tell us all you know about the Nexolord. I don't know anything. What? Do you really think the Nexolord would tell us his plans? Overseers are nothing but grunts to him. He lets us rule the petty town as long as I shut down anyone who opposes him. See, I have no idea what his schemes are. What? We beat you for nothing? Well, I suppose I could tell you about the champions. The champions? They are the Nexolord Inner Circle and are far superior to the Overseers. Interesting. Where can I find them? Yes, Ivan. Where can they find us? Go. Who said that? Damn, I did, bitch. That's pretty much what he said. Whew. Fenrir, what are you doing here? Hello to you too, Ivan. What a wonderful day to check on my favorite overseer. But lo and behold, a kid beat the almighty Ivan. A kid! I'm speechless. You're not supposed to talk about the champions. But they beat me. I had no choice. You're dead! Silence! On my authority as Fenrir, the champion of fire, your role as overseer is terminated. What? You know what? I don't care anymore. On my authority as the great Ivan, I shall terminate you. Bruh, you just got whooped by a kid. Why are you challenging this guy? He's going to freaking kill you. Take this. Bruh. Well, I look like Boo Boo on his chin though. It's like Boo Boo or it's a bat. Hey, yeah, let's get out of here, bruh. Team Rocket, okay. I heard you had some questions to ask the champion. Go ahead, kids, ask away. How's it going? Hey, don't ignore me. Ignore you? You were literally unconscious. I didn't even feel it, Fire Kid. Here I come. This nigga did knock you over the... Okay. Yeah. Now you got the boob on your chin again. What are you kids so afraid of? You'll be the overseer. You're not really worth wasting my time on. I can see why the Nexolord let you go. Oh, so you're already talking, huh? Poof, you know what? Do whatever you want, kid. You letting us go? Would you rather I not? I'm pretty sure we cool with a smooth little walk. It's the overseer's job to get their hands dirty, not mine. Out of my way. What have we got ourselves into? That was one of the Nexolord's champions. So if you want to fight him, oh yeah, totally. Look, kid, there are a bunch of overseers who despise the Nexolord as well. There's only one living in the mountains to the east. He knows a lot about the Nexolord. If you have the guts to ask him, that is. In the mountains, huh? Maybe you should talk with Ellie. Things are getting a little out of hand, don't you think? Let's get on up out of here. What about you? What will you do now that you're not an overseer? I will seek revenge on Fenrir. I will work out every single day. That brat won't see me coming. Bro, you literally had like a level 7 to level 8 thing. Right, we should probably get going. Bruh, how is he still here? Bruh, you're not allowed to be in here. This is just a home. Hello. I was on my way to you. Alice told me what happened with Ivan. This is so much worse than we thought. What do you mean? Whatever the next Lord is playing is gonna happen soon. How do you know that? A huge signal was broadcast from Nexolord Tower a few moments ago. I have been unable to decrypt the message, but this is the first time he's made such a huge broadcast. Ivan didn't receive a message, so maybe that's because he's no longer an overseer. Only way to find out is to ask another. There's no overseer in the mountains. We can get there by heading east. But before we do anything risky, we should heal your Nexomon and buy supplies for the trip. In the meantime, I tried to decrypt the broadcast. Good luck. Alright, when you're ready, let's head east. Understood?
A mysterious message has been delivered to all of the overseers. What could it be? What is the Nexolord planning to do? Now our heroes must meet with the overseer of the mountains to discover the truth.
Right, that's such Dragon Ball Z voice, man. On the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Hey, but listen, y'all. I just beat the gym master or whatever, the overseer. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just hop up out of there. It's been almost 2 hours. A little lengthier past what I normally do, normal hour and a half. But yeah, man, I don't know if y'all see the symbol down there in the lower right corner. Check me out on my other social media networks. We got Twitter. You can join my Discord. I'm on Steam now. Check out my YouTube channel, TikTok. You can check me out on Facebook. We got Instagram, and of course, right here on Twitch. So I guess till the next time I see y'all, let me say this right quick. Big Dre Sensei is out.